Hey everybody, we are back with another What Sold video, and first of all I just wanted to thank everybody for the really nice comments on the last video, my little sad video, where I was feeling a little down in the dumps but then felt better as I had some fun thrifting that day. It is good to know, that a lot of people go through the same stuff we do and that not everything is picture perfect all the time in reselling and in life, right? So we were going to talk about what sold in my reselling shops. This was right after our vacation. So we'll talk a little bit about, I'll let you know what I did to come out of the vacation and try to generate some sales afterwards. I'll just tell you the process a little bit. There's lots of different ways to handle vacations with your eBay business. And so we can talk about some of the options as well. But before we really get into it, I am overdue in thanking some people for some coffees. I have a link down in the description for my Buy Me a Coffee. It's just like a tip jar kind of thing. And there was a few from a few weeks back that I had spaced out on including, and so I wanted to catch up on that. So first of all, T bought me a coffee, and she was mentioning I'm assuming it's a she, sorry. Sometimes the names aren't like exactly names, but the name on there was T. Anyway, they bought me a coffee and they appreciated the flatware videos. So I am happy you had success, T, with the WMF Chromargan that you found. So a lot of the comments when people buy me a coffee have to do with the flatware. So I'm so excited that you guys are having success with that. Monica also bought us some coffee. She bought us 3. And she also is having some success with flatware and the Dansk and Oneida that she found. So Monica, I'm glad you're having fun with that. And thank you so much for the support and that you're having fun with your new niches that you've been playing with. Julie also bought us 3 coffees, and that was after the Western shirt. So hopefully the Western shirt video gave you a few more things to look for when you're out thrifting. And then I had some people buy me some coffees after this video that I was just talking about. And so I appreciate you guys cheering me up with with some coffees I could go out and get. Patricia bought me a coffee, and then Kat bought me 3. She also mentioned the flatware, not just you got this, like better times ahead, right? So I do appreciate all those messages that you guys have sent. And I am feeling pretty good. My kids got sick this weekend and I'm like, no. So anyway, I'm sitting here, I've got my emergency and whatever's going to happen. It'll probably be a week from now and I'll be like, yes, I made it. And then I'll come down with it. So, okay, we're going to pop over to the computer and we're going to look at what sold. It was when we came back from vacation. It's not even a full week, but I just decided to go to the end of the month just to kind of make things a little more even. And then next video, which will probably come along sooner rather than later, we'll start off with April. Okay, so let's pop over to there. So we are starting with eBay, but what I thought I would do is I'm here on my seller hub. And what I thought I would do is show you where the time away, the vacation mode on eBay is called time away. So however your seller hub is set up, if you come down to selling tools, that box at the very bottom is what's called time away. So what we ended up doing, so here's schedule time away. It says you can decide if buyers can purchase your items. And then they'll send automatic responses, like an automatic reply, like an out of office you can kind of set. So if we click on edit time away, so you can pause sales for up to 30 days while you're away. So this is what I did initially. It says they can't purchase fixed price items from you, but auctions, if you have any auctions running, people can still buy that. So they recommend starting the start date a couple days before. Sometimes people don't pay right away. So if you start your time away the day you're leaving and someone purchases something but doesn't pay for a day or two, then you either have to take it with you on vacation or whatever. So it says to give yourself a buffer. Even at the end, you can give yourself a buffer too if you want to. So this is pausing sales. So you can do up to a month at a time, so 30 days. I did that at first just so my brain didn't have to think about reselling for a little while. Then the next thing, the other option is you can do 15 days at a time. But you can allow, what does it say? Allow sales for up to 15 days while you're away. So it says buyers can see you're on time away. They can still purchase. So with time away, eBay will automatically extend your handling time. It used to be that you had to like do your handling time and the vacation mode, but they kind of combined this together into time away. So now there's certain things to keep in mind. Second chance offers, pending counter offers. So if any offers had happened and then you have some counter offers happening out there, if things are kind of like started before you go on vacation mode, then those things will not necessarily fall under the extended handling time, right? So you kind of have to play around with that when you pick the first. I tried to remember to do this, but I knew what day we were going to go on vacation mode. I tried not to send any offers before that because now people have like 4 days. It feels like they have a really long time to accept offers. So you kind of have to play around with all of that. So anyway, so what I did was a combination of these. I started off with sales paused. And then about halfway through our trip, maybe 4 days before we were going to be home, I switched it over to allowing sales, but still on time away. So they were still getting notified I was out of town, but they could start to purchase. So the very first thing I sold once I switched over to that, this was like we were coming home on Wednesday. Thursday was the first day we could ship. So I did this either on Sunday or Monday. And this is the first thing that sold. And I think I did message them because it sold Monday. And I just said, hope you noticed the time away. We'll ship on Thursday when we get home. And they were like, yeah, no problem. There's no rush. So it's just this lot of little figurines that I don't even know where they came from. They could have been in a Lego lot that Mr. Pish Posh ended up with. But anyway, we just ended up selling it for $18.99. We're going to switch over to the next sale was this Deneen pottery mug. Let's see. I did get good feedback on this mug, because some of these sales are already like over a month ago. And so I did get good feedback. I don't even know that the buyer necessarily had a connection to Prescott Pines Inn. They just liked the color of the mug and they liked, the design on it. So that worked out pretty good. Let me scroll down. Sorry, I'm looking over. You know me. I was just using my phone to record, so then I didn't grab it to double check prices. Yeah, so this sold for that full asking price of $19.99. Okay, then I sold this flatware. This was really nice. This pie server, I had 2 of them, and I had gotten them at a yard sale like last summer. And when I first looked at them, I don't even know that I ever got one listed unless I sold one at some point, maybe on Etsy. But anyway, I came across them again recently. So I was like, you know what, I'll just throw them on eBay. And I just put them on the same listing. And the person bought both of them. And the total was just about $40. I think they did get a discount for buying 2. I usually have that kind of discount set up that they get a little bit of a break if they buy more than one item. Then I sold this fabric for $24.99. It's a feed sack fabric, but it's a repro feed sack. Like it's new, but it's made to look like the old feed sack fabrics. 2 yards, we sold that for $24.99. Then I think this started Yeah, that sale, this was all on the days that we were traveling. And I think at this point I had switched it over because it was like the day before we were going to be home. So I think at that point I just turned it off. I just turned vacation mode off because we have a 2-day handling that we generally use anyway. And so at that point I was not on vacation mode anymore. So then $26.99 for this pair of Crocs. They don't necessarily look like Crocs, but that's, some of those different kinds of Crocs can sell pretty well. We did have those listed for a bit. Sold these 2 dinner forks by Reed & Barton for $28.99. I've said before in flatware videos or just talking about flatware that anything bamboo design generally does pretty well, no matter the brand. These are going to be marked, these were marked both. Okay, so they're Reed & Barton and then Reba Craft. So sometimes it's just marked Reba Craft, but that's Reed & Barton. Then you guys might remember this from one of my, I think the first cleaning out my garage, like shopping in my garage videos. This set of Corel or Gemco. They're made by Gemco, but they're like a Corning Corel coordinates. And the pattern was called Shadow Iris. And they're just little napkin rings in a holder. So I had those listed for $40, and that's what they ended up selling for. And I also got positive feedback on that. They were super happy to have it added to their probably Shadow Iris collection. Another box of these coppered flathead screen tacks or upholstery tacks sold for $16. It says it's out of stock, but we have sold, this is out of stock. So I think we sold one more box after this. You'll see in a future video. So then the next thing I did, we got home. Let's see. Yeah, we got home and then I started a sale pretty much that next day, that Thursday. So I did a 15% off sale. So what seems to work for me, I know a lot of people do sales kind of continually. But what seems to work the best for us is if we wait a few weeks in between our sales. So I hadn't done one in a while, and so it seemed to pay off through that weekend. We had a fairly good amount of sales. So this first one was this Erica Wilson Crewel Embroidery. It's just a box pillow with quail or some kind of game birds on it. And so I've had this thing forever. I think I had 2 back in the day, maybe sold one a long, long time ago. This came out of my garage and I had gotten it listed and I knew it wasn't worth a ton, but I listed it for $20 and someone bought it on sale for $16.99. Now these sold as an offer for $35 and that just pains me. And I was like so upset Mr. Pish Posh had to ship this for so little money, right? But we had it listed at $50. Not a whole lot of interest. It's not a complete set, right? And the bottles, not all the labels were complete and everything like that. So what I had in my mind to do for a long time was sell everything separately since it wasn't complete. It's a Griffith milk glass spice bottle set. So, you could sell the rack separately. I could have sold a couple of these at a time, like on Etsy or something like that. Or just done like a variation listing and people could just pick which bottles that they wanted. Anyway, it's so much work to get that done. Mr. Pish Posh had just went ahead, grabbed it, listed it. And we, once the $35 offer came in, I don't know. I think Mr. Pish Posh just took that offer and he was okay. I think he just wanted it gone. So something that I feel like back in the day would have sold a lot faster. Now this beautiful set is by Yale, and it says Salvage Antique Yale Junior Vulcan Mortise Door Lock Ornate Trim Knobs and Key. So has a skeleton key. It has those beautiful back plates. Anyway, that did sell for $76.49 on sale. Then another cross-stitch kit. sold in that sale. This one sold for $20. The brand is Nordiska, and it's from Sweden. I've had this listed too long, and I know we started off way too high. So we've slowly been dropping the price. Then finally someone paid $25.49. Then here's some more stuff for my garage. This Frankoma pottery. I sold the salad plates for $50.99. Someone took advantage of the sale to grab those. We were happy to let those go. Now here is a little story. I don't know. I'm always kind of poking around at different things that people sell, and I'm trying to thinking about selling outside the box a little bit and being willing to sell things at lower margins, not margins, but lower prices if the margins are good. Now, I had just listed these lids. They're for snapware pieces. And I got these at our little clearance store at the bins. And, I've seen other people sell replacement parts, and I've done a little bit of that kind of selling replacement things. And I thought, I bet in this economy, replacements might be a good idea to get into. And so I thought, I'm hardly paying anything at the bins. And look at, people, these little flaps always break. I thought it'd be great, right? So I listed them, and it didn't take too long. It was during the sale. They sold for $12.74. And I got a return opened on them. And so they were like, oh, they don't fit my snapware. And I was like, immediately, you know what? That's the problem. That's going to be the problem with selling replacement parts, is that people don't measure and they don't read. I'm not saying that's the case with this person, but I just, I was just kind of like, oh, that's going to be the headache, right? Is that people are always going to be buying the wrong thing, right? I don't know. Have you guys had experience with selling replacement pieces, parts? I had just went ahead. It was such a low value. I refunded it, and I was like, they are not required to send it back, but they sent it back anyway. So I don't know if they paid out of their pocket to send it back, because they did a return as, doesn't fit or something like that. So I didn't have to pay for them to send it back, but I just wanted to avoid the hassle, and they sent it back anyway. And so I am debating what to do about relisting them. So what I'm thinking is, I did put measurements in there. Anyway, okay. So maybe not the best measurements. Maybe 4x6 wasn't completely accurate. So maybe it's I have to get more, because I didn't have the bottoms to figure out where to measure from, right? So I just went off someone else's listing that's the same aqua color, and they were 6x4, and I'm like, well, it's 6x4 at some point in there. Okay, so maybe I'll just play around with that a little bit more. I don't even know if it's worth the time, so I'll figure that out eventually. Juicy Couture, we had this for a long time as well. It sold for that $25.49. It's a Y2K little velour hoodie. And Juicy Couture, especially the vintage stuff, is having a little bit of a moment because it was so popular in that 90s Y2K era. There wasn't anything special about this one, and I got so much attention on Depop and on Poshmark and things like that, but nobody pulled the trigger. So it sold for, like I said, $25.49. This was my Allie Miles piece. I had sold an Allie Miles a couple of weeks ago. I think I told you guys, and I was like, it was kind of a boring one. But I had then found this one, which I think is a lot more interesting and kind of eye-catching. So it's Allie Miles, plus it was a size XL. So I think I had it for $40, and then during the sale, somebody bought it for $33.99. And then sure enough, I got a case opened that they didn't get their item. And so I always go quick. I run and I look at tracking. Now tracking said it was delivered. So I knew I was covered. I knew I was safe. So I just messaged back in the case. I put in the tracking, and then in the case I just said, just double check with your neighbors or things like that. You can even ask at the post office, because a lot of post offices use GPS about where they actually drop the package and all that kind of stuff. And then I didn't hear anything, and I honestly forgot about it for a while. Let me pop onto the label here so you can see that. But anyway, a little while later, I kind of had forgotten about it, and all of a sudden I got notice that the case was closed, and it was closed by the buyer. So I was like, oh, I wonder if they found it or whatever. Well, in her feedback, she said, sorry about the confusion. Her husband had forwarded their mail, and she didn't realize he had done it already. And so it was delivered just to the address she was not expecting. Okay, next item that sold on eBay was a Cutco icing knife, like a spreader kind of thing. Not the most valuable piece that Cutco has, but it sold on the sale for $12.74. And then I've had pretty good success with this pattern by Oneida, Frostfire, so I will continue to pick that up. $21.24 for the 4 like butter spreaders, little flat-handled paddles kind of style. And this was the best sale of the week. It was a pair of clip earrings that I got at a local thrift. I don't remember exactly what I paid. I don't think it was more than $10 or anything like that. I think it was just regular clip earring prices. But the designer is Karl Lagerfeld. So I will admit that these were on Ruby Lane for quite some time. And they just weren't getting any kind of, nobody was buying, nobody was even really looking at them. So I thought, it was like we were back from our trip. I was like, I got to generate some cash. Let me see if these will do better on eBay. I just had a feeling they would, because I kept checking sold prices on eBay, and people were getting around $200, even higher, for this pair of horseshoe earrings. So I'm showing you the maker's mark, because this question does come up fairly often in jewelry reselling groups, what this maker's mark means, or what does it say. It's actually a K and an L, and that's Karl Lagerfeld. So if you find that, you have found a good thing. And those actually went through the international shipping program. So it says delivered, so that's good. Then, and did I say out loud $191.24? They used the coupon or the sale. And then Simply is another brand I've talked about, kind of like Alley Miles, that does pretty well and is a little bit under the radar. But I had found this, I only had ever found tunic tops. So I found this pair of pants, and these sold for $26. They're just Simply uses, it's kind of like that, it's like travel material. It doesn't wrinkle, and it's kind of slinky, but you kind of would notice it, going through the racks. Like the material is that like slinky knit kind of thing. I got really good feedback. She was super happy with it, even though my pictures aren't very exciting. And then we sold this hat for $18.99. I think the sale was over at that point. I did it through Sunday, and this was like on Monday. Okay, hopping over to Posh. So what had happened on Posh was I think I reopened it maybe like the day before that we were going to fly home. Because I knew with Posh you have a few days to ship. And when I turned Posh back on, off of vacation mode, I went ahead and turned PrimeLIster back on. So I had turned PrimeLIster off, so I wasn't doing all the sharing and all that kind of stuff. I don't even know if it would have worked with my vacation mode on, but anyway, so I turned them both back on, and so what's awesome is PrimeLIster just immediately starts sharing all my stuff and sending out offers and things like that. So I sold these UFOs, foam slides. They'd been listed for a little while. So we got a $20 offer, and I was fine with that. Sold this shirt, kind of an interesting, here's the label. It's Hilton Corporate Casuals. So anyway, it was like a bowling style shirt and it had the bowling theme on it. So I just kind of, it's not vintage or anything, but I just figured somebody would want that, and that sold for $25. Another little Cutco spreader sold on Poshmark for $25. So don't forget Home Goods and such on Poshmark as well. And then this Starbucks tumbler, I actually got this at Starbucks. It's a limited edition, so I thought I would take a chance on it. And since I spent many years as a sign language interpreter, then I decided that it would be a fun one to pick up. And I used my rewards for my Starbucks card, so I didn't really necessarily have to pay anything. I just had to drink some coffee. And anyway, that took a while. This has been listed for a little while, and so when I got the $21 offer, I said, you know what, that's fine. Let's move it on. And then I sold this, Vocal is the brand. Now I don't remember. There was another piece I have where it has two different labels. One label says Vocal and one says something California. What is the VO short for? Now I can't even remember. Let's see if it's on this one. Made in LA. No, I don't remember. But anyway, it's kind of an abbreviation of like two words that go together. But it's very Western, very boho type stuff. This was a tank top with rhinestones, and I think there was a few rhinestones missing. And then there was a little hole in it as well. I don't know where the picture is of that. I know we had a picture. But in any case, this was one of the items that had been listed too long in my eBay shop. And so I have been slowly working through some of those older listings. And this was a delist, relist kind of thing that I do through Vendoo. And not long after I relisted it on Posh, we're kind of going into more tank top weather, right? And so that sold for $16. Let's pop over to Ruby Lane. Ruby Lane, I just put on vacation. I opened it back up again, probably like the day we got back or the next day. And sales came in, I think by that Friday, I had a few sales. And I did list a few things like that Thursday when we got home. So I think that kind of helped kickstart things again. I sold this, it's just a pendant. It didn't have a chain or anything like that, but the glass was iridescent glass cameo, and it had a little tassel hanging from it, and that sold for $12. Sold this kind of basic Trifari brooch, like a ribbon or a bow, for $15. I sold this puppy dog brooch by Joe Maz, which is, Joseph Mazer. Is that what yeah, Joseph Mazer is the maker. So Joe Maz is what it's signed. This one wasn't super common, but I had it listed for $30, but Ruby Lane does these little flash sale type things for people. And so I've had a lot of people take advantage of those. $26 for that. And then this is another good set that sold for $81. I think I had it listed at $85 or something, somewhere in there. No, $90. It would have to be, because then they got like $9 off because I have a 10% flash sale discount. No, this was a repeat buyer. Sorry. So someone who had bought from me before, I have a repeat buyer discount set up that they get 10% off for being a loyal customer. So this I know I listed like on that Thursday, and it had sold by Friday morning. Such an interesting set. I actually bought this from another like jewelry collector reseller on Facebook, and I had bought this, and then also that Joe Maz dog I think I got from her too. Any case, I don't remember where I am as far as how much I paid, the profit and all that kind of thing, but I was glad that someone was excited about getting this. It was hard to find comps. Someone had the brooch listed, and I'm trying to be a little conservative in prices right now and just try to move some jewelry pieces through. Over on Etsy, I had some pattern sales. I want to say that those took a little while to to gain some traction. But by Friday, I think it was, I was getting some pattern sales again, and they were pretty strong throughout the weekend. So, and I don't remember exactly how soon I was able to get some new stuff put in the store. So McCall's, this is an evening elegance pattern, floor length gown or shorter, sold for $12. This McCall's Crafts, this one went really quickly. It's a tapestry blanket jacket, which is really popular right now. I wasn't sure if people, well, there's vests too, so it could still work going through into spring. So $16. And no kidding, I mean, it snowed like 3 inches here the other day, so some places are not quite warmed up yet. Then we have this Simplicity pattern, Style for Simplicity, another kind of formal gown. So I don't know if people are buying for weddings or for proms or things like that, but we have this, had a nice drape, it had a flounce, all that kind of thing. It was from the 90s and it sold for $15. This was a 2000s pattern. It was skirts and just a variety of skirts, like all different lengths, and some were A-line and some were straight, that kind of thing. Or maybe they were all A-line. And then this was a nice sale, $20. This one's been listed for a while. Civil War era costume kind of dress, The Fashion Historian by Simplicity, Southern Belle, that kind of thing. And another little light jacket, a fleece jacket for $14. Had kind of a shawl collar, notched and everything. And it was all the sizes. So that one is also from the 90s. That one sold for $14. And also this men's pattern of, I think it was all that you see here, shirts, shorts, pants, a tie. Anyway, men's patterns there's not as many out there. And it seems to me the ones I find end up like, especially vintage, they were used, right? Like women didn't just buy, oh, I think I'll buy my husband this and then not get around to do it. Like they bought it and they were like, I'm making you a shirt, okay? And so then they made it. But like, I think people were more like, oh, I'll buy a women's pattern. There were so many more. And people would like, have an idea, but then maybe not come around to doing it, right? So I like to pick up whenever I see men's patterns, even if they're more modern, I pick them up just because there's not as many of them out there. So this one sold for $15. And it was from 2000, so, I wouldn't look at that and go, hey, Y2K. It's all pretty classic styles that work pretty much anytime, which is often true with a lot of men's styles. And then the last thing I sold was in the Pish Posh Flatware shop, or the Pish Posh Kitchen, I should say. Here it is. I used to call it Pish Posh Flatware, but I've expanded it to kitchen. I cross-posted this. It's an Indiana glass amber chicken hen on nest, but it was the top only. It was just the lid, and I grabbed it at a yard sale. And I just figured someone's going to need a replacement at some point for this. And so once I was looking through eBay to find some other things that could go into this, that I could cross-post into this newer shop. And so I'm glad I cross-posted this because it sold for $18. So hopefully that worked for them for a replacement. So okay, so in conclusion, as far as coming off of a vacation, like I said at the beginning of the video, you don't even have to have your store closed, unavailable when you're on a trip. People could still purchase from you. I do suggest just kind of touching base with people. I'm sure eBay kind of lets people know that you're on vacation. I think the notification is good enough at this point, but I always just kind of do a backup email on that. But if you do kind of keep your stuff hidden, if you want to give yourself a full break, we've always found that if we open up our stores a few days before we're due to come home, that kind of gives that time for everything to re-index and things like that. And then if there's any kind of activity that you can do during that time, whether it's delisting, relisting, just kind of show eBay that you're back in action and that you're ready to be in business again. I think that does help. So, and then like we ran a sale like almost immediately after we reopened, and I think that helped too. So just a few ideas. As always, leave me a comment down below if you found anything great, if you had a really great sale that you want to share with me. That's what I usually ask at the end of these videos. But in any case, I'll probably have another what sold fairly soon coming up, just because I want to get caught up a little bit on that. And we'll have some other stuff coming up too this week. So we'll see you later.